What I'm looking for in a bank is one that's looking out for me, like NBT. I want a relationship and a team that supports me in my dreams. And when life gets challenging, I need a bank that's focused on what matters. Not to mention one that's been top rated by Forbes in trust, customer service, financial advice, and more. That's why when it comes to meeting my banking needs, it's always NBT. Learn more at nbtbank.com. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
Welcome and thanks for tuning in to another episode of our podcast On the Scene, brought to you by NBT Bank. My name is Tom Hickey, and I'm here from 2020 Media along with Bob Carr, and we are representing Southern New England Jewish Ledger, weha.com, and West Hartford Magazine, who is live 24/7, 365, reaching over 250,000 listeners just like you. So thank you for joining us today. As I mentioned, we are joined by NBT Bank, who, yes, happens to be the sponsor of our podcast On the Scene, and also the sponsor, which Bob might mention, of the Business Buzz in weha.com every single week. So thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for the introduction. So we have today Andreas Kapetanopoulos, who's the president of NBT Bank Connecticut, and Steve
Andreas,
Essex.
did you say that right?
I said it perfectly. I think you said it better than I did.
You're a better man than I am.
And Steve Essex, who is who's SVP at NBT Bank. And Steve, I didn't have your full title, so if I got something wrong there, let me know.
No, you got it exactly right. Thank you. The full title is New England Trust Executive. Thank you.
Ooh, gotcha. Right. So I want to do a little background here. We had Andreas on previously with Ronnie Newton, and a couple of things about an NBT Bank that I picked up from that first broadcast, that first podcast we did with Andreas. It's almost a $14 billion asset-based bank, assets under management. Sorry about that. And they're based in Norwich, New York, which only has about 7,000 people. I was surprised by that, and that you're not Norwich is not even a suburb of any of the major cities in that central New York area. So that's pretty cool.
Is it really 7? I thought it was probably less.
It might be just slightly less.
You must be rounding up.
I round up the 14 billion from 13.87, so now I round up to 7,000. So. And again,
and hence the reason why we're in West Hartford, right, Andreas?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we've got 60,000 people. There you go.
Slightly more people here.
Absolutely.
The last time around, as I recall from the conversation, there was Andreas mentioned that the loan amounts from NBT Bank range from $10,000 to $50 million or possibly more. So that's kind of a wide range. It means that you're loaning to smaller investors or smaller people who need funds, and then up to $50 million, which I think is probably a larger project. So I know Tom had a question or two. So Tom, take it away.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up before we jumped in into speaking specifically to Steve. Andreas, two things came to mind from the last podcast that we had done, and I encourage everyone to listen to that one as well if you haven't as of yet. Ronnie, as usual, did a great job. But one of the things that and this is sort of how we met, Andreas, and we seem to constantly cross paths at galas and fundraisers and nonprofit, related events or activities. And I won't use names, but I remember that being really a part of your life even before NBT Bank, and the whole bit. So I just wanted to give you a chance to talk a little bit more about why supporting small businesses, supporting nonprofit organizations means so much to you.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks again for having me back after the last podcast. You invited me back, even though we're the sponsor, but thank you. Yeah, that is it really is, I'd say, a big focus of mine is really the community, small business, the nonprofit world, and just really supporting those organizations. As Bob mentioned, we do loans from 10,000 to 50 million. The 50 million, so those are few and far between. We're really focusing on the lower end, let's say 10 million and under, and working with those small businesses out there. And we want to get into the communities, support the communities, we probably, I'm going to round out this number, but we're probably supporting at least 50 organizations in the greater Hartford region, providing financial support. We're also trying to get out there and do volunteer work as a team. I myself serve on 6 boards as well, so that keeps me busy. But that's really how I feel we're making an impact when we're out there, whether it's contributing financially or providing financing to a small business, and you can see the impact that it delivers. And recently, since our last podcast, we did conclude solidify the merger with Salisbury Bank, which really increases our footprint and our size here in Connecticut. And we put together a special fund, one-time fund of $500,000 to give away to organizations. So we're out there giving sizable donations that provide a real impact right in the community.
Excellent. Beautiful. All right. I think that just speaks volumes to, we don't want to give any trade secrets, whatever. It basically just speaks volumes to, being known, being recognized, being seen, and being sort of, on people's minds, when the need arises, for something. The other thing that I noticed, I think it might have just been a few weeks ago, I noticed the sign in front of what will be your
right.
in West Hartford bank saying future home.
Right.
Just wanted to give you a chance to talk about that.
Sure, yeah.
The next West Hartford location.
Yeah, West Hartford location.
Right. Yeah, right next to well, I guess if you're facing Town Hall, just to the right, 68 South Main, and we'll be opening in January 22nd is kind of the date, pending all approvals. That's what we're targeting, and long time coming. We're over in Corporate Center West, 433 South Main Street. We'll keep those offices here. With the lending staff will be, and we actually have a branch here on the 2nd floor, which if somebody can find it, which is not easy to drive around, but people do find it. But now we'll be truly accessible. And I was driving by on South Main, and they had the Scott Franklin, our landlord, had the for rent sign, and I just kind of said, well, let's put a coming soon here just to get the name out there. And so we're definitely looking forward to get there, get in place, up and running, and then being accessible to the community, which I think will be a big.
That's pretty quick turnaround, right, for the opening. But we don't have to say who it was, but it's been a bank, or at least at one point.
It's been, right? I think, about 10 years since it's been a bank. So. But we just have, so there's not and then the good thing is there's not a lot of work, but obviously new carpet, paint, and make sure that the drive-through works, because that hasn't been operational for quite a while. Yeah. And it's got one of the old style big walk-in safes, which nobody really puts in anymore, but it's got that in there. So so we're very excited just to be in the center again, or not again, but be back in the center. We were leasing offices in Regis prior to the pandemic, so love the accessibility there.
Well, yeah, I think the drive-through will be great because it's a great corner in the sense that you're not really quote unquote in that hub of West Hartford Center. You get stuck in traffic, so
right. It's true, yeah. And then a lot of you're not fighting for parking because we have plenty of parking, so it's a quick walk over to Dunkin' Donuts for us too. So.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck. That's great. All right, now Steve, we long awaited Steve. I've got to go back to that fancy title. So other than the SVP, what was it?
Yeah, Senior Vice President and New England Trust Executive. And the purpose behind that is, so NBT's primary trust presence was in New York. I came from the merger of Salisbury Bank. We're up in Lakeville, Connecticut. But if you look at NBT's footprint, it spans from New York and goes all the way over to Maine. And so the idea behind, with the combination of NBT and Salisbury, okay, well, now you're further into Connecticut, and there are certain advantages to just continuing on to other areas of New England. So that's one of my primary objectives in this role is to expand out our trust presence in the rest of New England.
When you had
That's
the
a
trust
lot.
presence in Salisbury or Lakeville area, was it a lot of Connecticut, or was it a lot of New Yorkers who had second homes there, or is that not something?
It is, up in that part of Connecticut is a lot of the New York second homers, upper Litchfield County. But the nature of the trust business is even as Salisbury, you've got your primary clients in that area, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New York, Hudson Valley. But nature of the trust business, clients are all over the place. So we extend out to the west coast of the U.S. and a couple various clients overseas. So even as a community bank, we were all over the place. But now we have the opportunity to actually have a physical presence and offices within the 7 states where NBT has a footprint.
And I didn't realize it went all the way up to Maine. So see, you learn something new every day with the podcast. That's amazing. Great.
There you have it.
That's a broad footprint.
So Steve,
it is, absolutely.
Steve, what's your background in, and how did you end up in wealth management? I mean, that's a kind of an interesting way to get.
Yeah. So I went to school in Connecticut, graduated from the University of Connecticut, and in the late 80s, while I was going to college, I started in banking as a teller. For those that remember United Bank. And after college, continued in the banking career in Hartford. And then throughout it was in the early 90s that I got involved with the trust area of a bank at that point. And my career took me from Hartford to Southern Connecticut to Princeton, New Jersey, Manhattan, and then back to Connecticut. So over a 30-year career in trust and wealth management.
So is there a threshold by which someone reaches out to the bank, a financial threshold, portfolio size, et cetera, to reach out to the bank and work with you guys?
Yeah, that ties into one of the questions we were talking about prior to the, as we were kind of leading up to the podcast. There's this, as people hear the term trust, they think, well, you got to have a lot of money in order to set up a trust. And certainly there are those instances out there. I was remembering a book I was reading. It was called Undue Influence, and it was a full title, The Undue Influence: The Epic Battle for the Johnson & Johnson Fortune. It was a story about Seward Johnson Jr. Married had a second marriage with his housemaid, and ended up leaving his entire fortune to that housemaid and disinheriting his 6 children, and set up this epic probate battle. And I was thinking, that makes great reading, and it was an interesting reading, but it's not the typical trust situation. And there's any number of reasons why somebody would set it up. And it doesn't necessarily take millions of dollars to do that. There are various purposes that not necessarily for tax reasons. It's really about controlling assets. In the case somebody becomes incapacitated, is not able to manage assets themselves, wants to leave assets to children or grandchildren, but wants to maintain a little bit of control over those assets. So there's any number of examples and scenarios, and if you wish, I can give you a couple of those.
Sure, absolutely great. My wife's family had a trust based on the sale of a farm. This farm was sold back in the 80s, so I have a little bit of knowledge there, but it was a really long time ago.
Yeah, well, classic situation. I think most often, I was trying to think of, when would you most frequently hear the term trust? And it's usually as clients are getting up to into 60s, 70s, perhaps. They're thinking about what if they become incapacitated at some point, or as part of their estate planning, they want to set up a trust together with their other estate documents. And the purpose behind that is to gather assets together, and just in the case that they become incapacitated, not able to manage assets for themselves or their investment accounts or real estate or whatever, a trustee can immediately step in, and there's no break in the management of those investments, and they're managed for the care of that person that established the trust. or they're managed for beneficiaries that they name. So going back to the question of how at what value would you start thinking of something like that? Certainly there is kind of a threshold, and if someone were to ask that question, I say $250,000, $300,000, and why is that? Well, you're going to have to at least perhaps hire an investment manager. All right, that's going to cost you a certain amount, usually a percentage of assets. And then it just depends upon the complexity of the assets that you have within the trust. It could be, with the expense of that, that's why it typically leads up to about $250,000, $300,000. Under that, the expense of running the trust might not make it worth it, if that makes sense.
Definitely. That's quite a career movement from being a bank teller to managing, right? So, I mean, and you have to see the whole scope of how a bank operates, right, in that career.
Well, there are interim steps into that. I think it began because I had a temporary position with the bank, and I took a class on trust administration and estate settlement. And after hearing that, I said, this is it. This sounds like something I want to be involved in. And so then it was just waiting for that opportunity to come up. And that's when I started my career in the trust area of the bank.
Very cool.
Yeah, and that was in downtown Hartford, back before it was apartments.
Exactly.
Oh, at the Connecticut National Bank or Hartford National Bank?
Yeah, exactly. I think it was Connecticut National at that time, which was Charlotte and then Fleet Boston through the mergers in the 90s.
Absolutely. Very familiar with that building. And I worked in the Gold Building right next door. So,
beautiful.
That could be a whole separate podcast. We could just talk about all the different banking transitions over the course of the last 25 years.
Absolutely.
That could be crazy.
There was definitely a lot of banks in downtown Hartford, and that's why I don't go back to the Norwich thing, but that's what makes that so unusual or unique to me is that Norwich, New York being such a small community, to create a bank or have it grow this large out of such a small community, I think is relatively unusual. Because most of the times it's from cities and maybe a suburb, but rarely something out like kind of. I grew up in New York State, and I went to school in upstate New York, so middle of nowhere is not right the proper word, but it's kind of in a space that is unique, and to have gotten through all the changes in the banking industry, which I know Andreas could speak to. You had so many mergers and acquisitions, and different things happening over the years that it's kind of. Hartford had quite a downtown presence of banks, bank offices. So anyway, I'm very familiar with that.
Absolutely. And there's an argument to be said that West Hartford has a good amount of presence. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Steve, one of the things I'm curious about, and this is not a setup by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just curious, not how, but why do people go to you? When there's so many choices out there, referrals or neighbors or friends or whatever it is, even just take where your new the new branch is going to be in West Hartford Center. I don't know, what do you have, Andreas? Probably 12 different options in a 3-mile radius.
At least, yeah.
So
14, absolutely.
Well, yeah, so what what would make somebody, what would make someone like me, if I was listening, or anyone listening in the podcast, what would make them come to you? Is it a referral from Andreas? Is it just that they love NBT Bank, or is it you? What do you think it is?
Yeah, there's a lot to that question, and it's really a number of directions. And I think you, just as you were saying, I think you hit upon it. A lot of times it's an existing relationship with a bank. So, Andreas might have a client that he says, look, they're looking to establish a trust as part of their estate planning. Steve, can you go talk to this person and just let them know what we can do for them? So existing banking relationships, it could be, contacts with the client's attorney or their accountant, because we don't practice law, we don't give tax advice. Mm-hmm. So it's often the contact with those other advisors, legal and tax advisors, where clients might come to us because they're familiar with us, they know the people here. And really that's what it comes down to at the end of the day is the people. You're going to get clients coming to you or referred to you because they have a level of confidence in how you're going to take care of them or their family. And that's usually what drives the referrals. Kind of stepping back a couple of steps. We were talking about examples earlier, and one of the ones I was thinking about prior to the podcast was I was just thinking about recent instances, and it gets to the greater question of why would you choose a bank as your trustee versus a family member or versus a family friend. And really, where those cases come into to play is that sometimes there isn't a family member that would want to step in to serve as a trustee of a trust. It's a lot of responsibility. You've got to manage assets. You got to work with investment advisors, and there's legal and tax issues that you need to be educated on. I don't want to make it sound complex, but in some cases it might be. It's hiring on a professional trustee and having confidence that the trust is going to be administered properly. You're not going to have any issues. In the case that there's nobody in the family wants to step up to serve in that role. And the next, another example was, I can think of cases where, let's just say, mom and dad establish a trust that upon their passing will continue on for their kids or provide the children or grandchildren with an inheritance. And there have been cases where we've stepped in after, let's say, a second parent has passed away, the trust is funded. One of the children was named as trustee for their sibling because perhaps one of the children has a little more experience with managing financial assets than the brother or sister. Sounds good. Sounds like a good idea. But sometimes that can, as you can imagine, create a little bit of conflict. It doesn't allow that sibling to be a sibling when one of them has to go to a brother or sister and say, "Look, I need some money for a car, to buy a house, or start a business, or whatever the case is." You're used to fighting with them over Thanksgiving dinner or something along those lines.
Really?
I have to go to them for money. Yeah. So that's often where a professional trustee could step in and serve as a solution. So sometimes we'll get the referrals in those situations from the family's attorney or their tax advisors.
Great. So do the local branches, Steve, have a quote unquote Steve in every branch, or does the branch refer people to you and then you help them from wherever you are?
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, people will come into branches all the time and say, do you provide these services? And then they'll reach out to us. So, we have a presence here in West Hartford, up in Lakeville, within Connecticut. And we cover the branches throughout Connecticut, and, I'll stretch out into Hudson Valley, as I was saying, out to Maine, if there's opportunities out there as well. So we've got but yeah, we're given the expertise required, the experience and specialization it takes to provide the trust administration and estate settlement services. Those offices tend to be in certain areas, and again, for us in Connecticut, that's Lakeville and West Hartford.
Right. Great. Excellent. Bob, anything that you want to ask, or Andreas and Steve, anything you'd like to add before we have to, believe it or not, sign off? 30 minutes flies by. It's hard to believe, but it really does.
Yeah, no, I think this was great getting back together. And, Steve, I think demystified trust a little bit for us today.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That was great.
I would say one thing is, I'd say one thing to leave everyone with, because I've seen a lot of these messages being posted on LinkedIn by attorneys that I'm connected with and other advisors, and it is a good reminder because it's related to the business that we're in. And it's that if folks have not updated or created their basic estate documents, wills, durable power of attorney, healthcare proxy, living will, those are just the basics, and they're relatively inexpensive to put into place. And it really does take a lot of the burden off of the family to have those ready to go. You never know when you're going to need them. And oftentimes, death or incapacity can surprise. And so it is very important that to the extent folks have not done that or updated them in some years, to go out and I'll give a plug for the area trust and estates attorneys. Go see your area trust and estates attorney and get your basic estate documents taken care of. And to the extent that incorporates a will or a trust into that mix, certainly there's sources of contact to have those discussions.
Thanks for pointing that out. We are at the end of a calendar year, so let's actually make that a New Year's resolution for people.
New Year's resolution
that they actually do, right? That they actually, not one of those, I'm going to lose 20 pounds and it never happens, so that would be great.
Right.
All right. Well, I wanted to thank everyone. Andreas and Steve, thank you for your time. Bob, as always, thanks for joining us. And we will be with you again. And I'm not. We already know who our next guest is going to be for On the Scene. But we just encourage you at this gift-giving time of the year around Hanukkah and Christmas and whatnot. We'll make it a very interesting podcast next time you join us on the Scene.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the Scene.
What I'm looking for in a bank is one that's looking out for me, like NBT. I want a relationship and a team that supports me in my dreams. And when life gets challenging, I need a bank that's focused on what matters. Not to mention one that's been top rated by Forbes in trust, customer service, financial advice, and more. That's why when it comes to meeting my banking needs, it's always NBT. Learn more at nbtbank.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.